Dominic, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
I've listened to you before, and there are so many things I want to say to you. Is this sour grapes with you, Dom? Let's be honest, you've been carping from the sidelines for ages. You must be glorifying in Boris's disasters. Let's be honest. Come on.
No, I don't glorify in Boris's disasters because it's a disaster for the country. That's where the real problem lies, and nor is it about Brexit. Ultimately, I've had disagreements with colleagues who are still in the House of Commons over Brexit, who are Conservatives, and I've maintained friendly relations with them. Those are differences on policy.
Yeah.
The problem with Johnson is that Johnson is unfit for office. He's shown repeatedly that he sets out ministerial codes, he writes eloquent forwards to them, he sets down the ground rules of propriety by which government is to be conducted, and then he doesn't follow them himself, and he lies about it. He's a serial liar.
How did he then, Dominic? But then, Dominic, how? This is what I don't get. Let's go with your theory, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. How, in the name of the Lord, did he win the majority that he did in the election? But more than that, all of your party voted him hands down to be the Prime Minister. If anybody can be criticised, surely it's those Tory MPs, right, who were looking out for themselves and getting re-elected to their cushy seats rather than coming up with a man who was good enough to be Prime Minister.
Yes, I agree with that. When he was elected in the summer of 2019, it was obvious to large numbers of his parliamentary colleagues that he was a person who could not be trusted and was unfit for office. But because they were so concerned about the difficulties they were encountering over getting Brexit down, they were prepared to forgive him all that because they thought he was an election winner. And I have to say, he's a very charismatic individual and he does have election-winning qualities. But the trouble is, they're usually on the back of his own deceit. But the fact is, that's why they went for him. And 2 years down the track, they're now saddled with the consequences of this because it's become apparent over and over again that he can't be trusted. And it's not just a Westminster pantomime, because the consequence of the fact he can't be trusted is also apparent in our international relations. Our key allies will not really engage with us and will not engage with him because they don't trust him. So it's a really serious issue. And all I can say is I would urge my Conservative colleagues who are still in Parliament, many of them still friends with me, even if we disagreed on Brexit, they should just get rid of him. They're the only people who've got the power to do it.
But that's fine. But no, right, so here we go. Let's have another discussion, because let's talk about the Tory party. The most outdated and, I think, dysfunctional way, and I've never agreed with it. John Major did not win an election and became Prime Minister. However many MPs there are, Tory party MPs, I do not believe the British public, Dominic Grieve, believe that those gentlemen and women have the right to oust a Prime Minister, OK, genuinely, I'm just saying that for a reason, who's been voted for by the British people. The Prime Minister, if he's about to be kicked out, should be forced to go to the country and find if the country kicks him out. Why should 400 Tory MPs have that much power, Dominic?
The system of government we have in this country is that the Prime Minister is not a president, thank God. He's the Prime Minister. He is the person who emerges from the largest party after an election who is capable of forming an administration. So that doesn't arise, and actually it's their plain duty of Conservative MPs, if they think the Prime Minister is unfit for office because of his personal characteristics and serious failings, to get rid of him.
Do you think that if there was an election right now, he would lose absolutely, categorically, his majority in everything?
I think it's very likely. And I simply say this, I think the real risk to the Conservative Party is that if they stick with him and kick the can down the road, then the real risk is that they will have a catastrophic outcome at the next general election.
The interesting thing, we were talking about Sunak, and I have a friend who's an MP, and I won't tell you who it is either, and I texted him earlier. Friend of yours, actually, and he said, I thought this was really interesting, Dom. He said, I'm keeping my cards close to my chest, as we all are, at the moment. When I've decided, I'll let you know. So maybe sitting on a letter to the 1922 Backbench Committee. But so many MPs, and it's easy for you to say this now. You're a former Attorney General, ex-MP. You now have the freedom to say what you feel. The problem that the British public have with so many of these men and women, Dominic, is that they're going to wait now to protect their own backsides, aren't they? If I show my hand too soon and he doesn't get ousted, I've got no personal hope whatsoever. And if I don't show my hand quick enough and he is gone, then the new regime are not going to look very favourably at me. That's a dangerous way to be, isn't it?
It's not the most satisfactory way. I'm afraid it's the way of human beings. I rather agree with the analysis. I think a lot of them are going around hand-wringing, saying Johnson is failing, he's wrong, he might be gone soon. But they're not actually grasping the nettle and taking the difficult decisions they need to take about getting rid of him. And of course, finding a new leader is difficult. I know that. I've seen it. I've been in the House when it's happened.
Who do you think, if Boris Johnson is thrown out and you get your wish, you and the remaining clan, who would you think should get the job?
I don't have a view. I think there is more than one pebble on the beach, and all of them are likely to be better than the Prime Minister we have at the moment.
Give me a top three.
I leave it entirely to them.
Give me a top three. All right, I'll throw them at you. What about Rishi Sunak? A lot of people are saying Rishi is, with respect, not experienced enough, is too glossy and has made catastrophic errors of judgment by trying to distance himself from Johnson at this moment so that everybody thinks he's playing a game. What would you say about Rishi Sunak?
Rishi is undoubtedly not the most experienced in terms of his time in Parliament, but I think he's acquitted himself as Chancellor of the Exchequer perfectly reasonably in the midst of a difficult crisis, but he is not the only possibility.
And also he's guilty by association with a government that's unpopular, isn't he?
The longer the Cabinet tolerate Johnson's leadership, I have no doubt you're right, the more smeared they're going to be with Johnson's behaviour.
What about Liz Truss?
Why they should get on with it.
What about Liz Truss? Back to Maggie. What do you make of that?
I know Liz probably better than I know Rishi.
Yeah.
I think that she has undoubted qualities. I also think that she may have some drawbacks, but I am not in the House of Commons now, and I think that actually this is a matter where my colleague's judgment is likely to be much better than mine on this, as to whittling down to two names to put to the Conservative Party membership, if indeed that's what they've got to do.
I believe
if they do that, they should put an interim Prime Minister in while they're doing it, because the sooner Mr Johnson's out of Downing Street, the better.
So you're saying an interim Prime Minister, somebody like Gove, who seems to have more sustainability than Velcro himself. What about Jeremy Hunt? Myself and Peter Cardwell were talking about Jeremy Hunt, not stained by this regime, to be fair, has held a senior cabinet post. It's about as exciting as Keir Starmer. Blimey, Prime Minister's question time would be boring from there on in, wouldn't it? What do you make of Jeremy Hunt?
Jeremy's an old friend. I think he's a man of integrity.
Yeah.
He's been off the front bench for a number of years. But as I come back to my point, I'm not best placed to judge.
No, I'm not saying I'm asking your opinion. You must have an opinion, Dominic. You must have an opinion.
I may have an opinion, but I'm not sure it's an opinion I'm going to express publicly, because I don't think it's helpful. Because at the moment, the key issue for me, as a Conservative Party member of 44 years, would quite like to be a Conservative Party member again, actually, is the main thing I think is essential is that a Prime Minister who is dishonest, won't follow rules, and has behaved very badly should be out of office, because it is not in the national interest to be there.
What do you say to several people, finally quite a few, listening to Dominic Grieve, who is bitter and twisted still because... I'm just reading this to you. Listen, answer it.
All right.
Makes me want to support Boris Johnson, because every potential replacement I've heard mentioned is so much worse. In fact, to be honest, I look at them all and wonder what the hell we've elected. What would you say to that, Dominic?
I think they're mistaken in their view that the names you've just been reading out are worse than Boris Johnson. I think in terms of integrity, it would be very difficult at the moment to find somebody worse than Boris Johnson, although perhaps there's somebody lurking around on the Conservative benches who would be worse, but I rather doubt it. The question isn't about policy. The question is about whether you want to have a Prime Minister in the 21st century who is not following the basic ground rules on propriety in government, which he plainly is not and has not been doing at almost any stage since he was elected.
Dominic Grieve,
really serious consequences for this country's reputation.
No, I get that.
And good governance.
Listen, everybody's got an opinion. One final thing. Opposition peers have voted against a range of measures. You're at QC and an ex-Attorney General, against a range of measures in the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. 30 seconds. What do you make of that? Are the Lords right or wrong?
the Lords are right on most of what they did. The ones on public demonstrations, I'm sure they were right. The government is taking a sledgehammer to crack a nut. There is an issue. I don't believe that people should be gluing themselves to motorways, but the powers that were being taken were excessive in order to address that. And as actually I drafted one of the amendments that went through the House of Lords, I was rather pleased with the outcome, but that was the one on demonstrations in Parliament Square.
How do you deal with people gluing their faces to the roof when or the road when you're trying to get to hospital, see your ill granny then? How do you deal with that?
It's already a criminal offence to glue yourself to the road, but you don't stop people gluing. You're not going to stop people gluing themselves to the road somewhere by laying down all sorts of rules by which you can get orders against people forbidding them to engage in public demonstrations. That is not what a free and democratic society should do.
Dominic Grieve, QC, thank you very much indeed, ex-Attorney General and ex-Tory MP.